Hey Tim, how are you going? Did you have a nice Easter?
Yes, I chose to stay home. I don't know where you went.
Did you? Yes, it was nice to not feel pressured to do anything but stay home, to be perfectly honest.
Yeah, I did contemplate getting out all of my overseas photographs and looking at them on television and doing a little bit of pretending, but that was as far as it went.
Yes, don't even talk to me about overseas holidays. Okay, so we have had a call with Fair Trading today just to get some clarity on a lot of the detail around the Minister's announcement on residential rent relief. Now, there was a little bit of confusion. We haven't seen all the detail, but the regulations we expect to see tomorrow. Is that right?
Correct. So that's got to be our source document. So I guess everything we say now is to some extent being parroted back from what Fair Trading have said was half an hour ago and what the Minister said yesterday in his announcement. But before I feel comfortable, I would like very much to read the regulations.
Yeah, and as I said, we expect to see those tomorrow. And there's the 60-day announcement, the moratorium for 60 days. It's important to note that 60 days starts from the date of the regulations that we assume will be tomorrow.
Yeah, that again, that's what we were told today. But that seemed to me to be a little bit fuzzy as well when we asked about when you're serving termination notices and all of those sorts of things. So again, I'd like to actually read the regulations.
Yeah, that's very wise. And so giving notice for properties that have been sold. On the first reading of what was provided yesterday, it looked like that might have been moved from 30 to 90 days, but in fact, it hasn't changed at all.
No, and look, that is an enormous win for us. I have to say, I was very, very worried about that because of what we saw in Tasmania and from what I can understand, a number of other places where that is a genuine problem, and it would have just, in my view, and I'm sure in yours, would have just destroyed the market as far as from the sales concerned. So the fact they haven't changed that is great.
Yeah, absolutely.
We can motor forward.
Yeah, absolutely. And they also talked about the fact if the landlord is in hardship, there is the opportunity to potentially have the tenant leave and have the landlord come in and live in the property.
Yeah, I guess that broke away into two streams, didn't it?
Yeah.
The no grounds eviction, and again, we were concerned with that because there, to me, seems to be this erroneous view that all landlords are doing it fine. But the reality of it is that it could be the case that the landlord, for whatever reason, needs to retake possession of their property.
Yeah.
And I know that happens for a variety of reasons. You know, you could be coming back from overseas. We know how popular that is right now. Or,
yes.
Your personal circumstances are such that you need to get property. And these sorts of things happen all the time. So being able to get your property, to recover your property with the no grounds termination, that hasn't changed. So that's good also. But the other stream that you're alluding to, that relates to the negotiation that you're having with the tenant, because the tenant is obviously in some difficulty paying the rent. So on the face of it, they say, well, I can't afford to pay the rent. You know, that's all done and dusted. But the landlord can be in hardship as well. And it's not hard to think about where that could be happening. The landlord's lost their job and they've still got obligations to the property and still got obligations to the bank.
Yep.
So that hardship goes on the table for the negotiation, and then if you can't make some sort of resolution, then to mediation and potentially to NCAT.
Yep. Okay. I thought it was interesting. So to be considered impacted by COVID-19, the household income needs to have been reduced by at least 25%. That gets really complicated when you are considering share households.
Yeah, it is just complicated because you can have a reduction in your income. that is not related to COVID-19. So you've got to tick both of those boxes, and that sounds great, but then you've got this evidentiary issue of how you would actually go about it. But let's say that we don't focus on that too much. Let's say, as you say, we're in a share house, and there's 3 of us in a share house. That all sounds great. And then we want to demonstrate that the household income has gone down by 25%. The only way that we can do that is if all 3 of us disclose amongst ourselves our financial circumstances, our salary.
Which people are not going to want to do. But, I mean, you would hope that they would be okay to confidentially disclose that to the real estate agent. Hopefully.
Yeah, or maybe that's done through a third party. I hadn't thought about that, but I've had half an hour to think about it. But, look, that could be the case also. But that comes back to we're going to hold hands and it's all going to be in good faith.
Good faith, and everybody has to be reasonable.
That was the other one.
You love that word, reasonable, don't you?
Yes, I do. Yeah. What's the chances of people not being reasonable?
Well, and that's the thing, right? So if they are not reasonable, if you can't come to an agreement, then it goes to fair trading. The fair trading mediators will then get involved, and they will ask the tenants for proof of their hardship and their impact on COVID. If they still can't agree, then it goes to NCAT, and NCAT's really the wild card here, because we just don't really know how they're going to react to any of this, do we?
Not at this stage, no. We're going to have to get a few decisions out of NCAT to see how they're going to deal with it. But I don't think we're going to have to wait long for that. It's just my gut feeling. I think we'll start to get some decisions out of there very, very quickly. But it will be interesting.
Yeah, it sure will. Now, those landlords that are paying, that are liable to pay land tax, have got the ability to get a 25% waiver if they then give the tenants the same equivalent amount reduction, which is great. But the reality is that only 16%, or some 200,000 landlords in New South Wales, actually pay land tax anyway. And typically they're going to be the bigger investors, aren't they?
Yeah, that's right. So, again, there was a lot of hoo-ha made about it yesterday when the Treasurer was announcing his $440 million assistance program. But for the vast majority of residential landlords, it's not going to be of any value. And that there means it's not going to be any value to the tenant either.
To the tenant. No, that's exactly right. It's really...
So the commercial guys, I think, will rejoice in it, to the extent that it's happened, but not much in it for the resi people.
Yeah, no, it is important for commercial. And while we're talking about commercial, we should just let everybody know that we have got a webinar at 3:30 tomorrow afternoon focusing on those commercial changes. So we've both had a lot of emails and messages over the weekend with lots of questions around how the commercial world has been impacted. So we will be answering all of those and so much more tomorrow afternoon at 3:30.
Yes, we will. And also I can say that there will be 2 representatives from the Office of the Small Business Commissioner. So like fair trading in the resi space, in the commercial space, it is going to be the Office of Small Business Commissioner, and they will be involved in dispute resolution and like. So we're very, very fortunate to have 2 of them coming along tomorrow, 2 senior people there. The other thing we've been working on over the weekend, since we got a bit more detail on the code, is a PowerPoint presentation which will take people all the way through it, all the way through the process about what's happening in space. And those who are engaged with the webinar will be able to have access to that. They can take it with them. We've also prepared 2 draft letters. One letter will go to the tenant, and this draft letter is designed to try and start the discussions about in the commercial area. Start the discussions about getting that information in, and then the other draft letter that we've got, or pro forma letter, is the one to the landlord to try and bring some uniformity of process in there. So we'll make them available as well. And finally, a fact sheet, sort of those 1-page cheat sheets. So we'll have that there as well.
Great. That sounds like it's going to be a really good webinar.
Yeah, yeah. So we should have plenty of information and plenty of supporting documents to assist practitioners.
That's fantastic. And so the team at REI are busily updating the website every single day. So if there is any questions, please, that's the first place to go. We'll, I know the team also send members out emails every day with the relevant links to fair trading information and all of that sort of stuff. Interesting to note also, Tim, that we saw the clearance rates come out today. There were 410 properties that went to auction on Saturday in Sydney. The preliminary clearance rate is 31.1%. And of that 31.1%, 65% of them were actually sold before auction. So agents are trying to get those deals done prior to auction where they can, which makes sense. Certainly, Easter's always the quietest weekend of the year, of the selling year for agents, so it's no surprise that the numbers were down. But across the country, the CoreLogic result was 29.9%, and that is the lowest clearance rate recorded since CoreLogic have actually been reporting on this since 2008. So that tells everything, doesn't it?
Yeah, I don't like hearing the numbers, but
No.
yeah, I have to accept what they're telling us. Isn't that another example of just how fast and how devastating this thing has had? Because I remember, you know, in the late January, February, we had clearance rates of 80 to 83%.
Yeah, they were massive.
Yeah, wasn't it? And, and you know, and a lot of SARS, it's breathtaking to see what's happened.
Yeah, impacted very quickly. Although I was talking to one of my guys in the field today, and he listed 3 properties last week. He got 1 deal done and he listed 3 properties. So there are still deals being done, and a lot of it is around the way that the salespeople are actually approaching it. I mean, I get that not everybody's going to want to buy or sell in this market. I completely understand it, but some people will. So as agents, you need to be open-minded and be having those conversations with your clients.
Yeah, very, very much so. I agree with you entirely. You know, the way we were doing it in the January, February when it was 83%, that worked then. The way we do it now, it won't work that way. So we have to reinvent ourselves. We have to accommodate the market and be offering services that respond to the market conditions. And,
exactly.
And clearly, the man you're referring to has worked all that out and is doing it. And it's a bit of a lesson to the rest of us out there.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, we are lucky enough to have Fiona Blaney joining us at our on our webinar on Friday morning at 10:30. We have never done so many webinars, you and I. And so we will, by then we'll have seen the regulations, we'll have a bit more detail around it, and Fiona will be able to also talk to the way a lot of people out there in the field are handling it and the issues that they're facing and how they're actually dealing with them in the field. So I'm really looking forward to that.
No, it's gonna again be you know, like a real meat and potatoes webinar, similar to what we're doing with commercial tomorrow, but that'll be resi on the Friday. Yeah, plenty of work, plenty of things happening.
Yeah, there certainly is. Let me just see if there's any questions before we go. Yes, there is. There's a tenant who's has not requested assistance, but is 15 days in arrears. Does 14 days notice still apply? Yeah.
And now again, we grappled with that very question with fair trading, didn't we?
Yes, we did.
And we said to them, if we have served a notice now, a rent default notice, what happened to it? And we didn't get a clear answer, did we, about whether or not the application of this was going to be predated. And then there was another question: if you have filed your proceedings but haven't served them, you know, what would happen there as well? So again, I don't want to look like I'm avoiding the question, but you're going to avoid the question. I need to look at the regs. Yeah.
But I would, I mean, my recommendation would be to issue the proceedings as normal today, and if it can't go ahead, it can't go ahead. But there's no reason not to issue it today, because we've also got the question of landlord insurance, right?
Yeah. Now that one really does need to be highlighted. there's an erroneous view out there that some people are embracing that says, well, it doesn't really matter if I have to give the tenant $100 or $200 a week off their rent, I'll just get that from my landlord's insurance. That's not the case. Absolutely not the case. You can't go and do that and expect the landlord's insurance to be there for you. So before you do make any deals with the tenant as a landlord with the tenant, you really do need to take your insurer with you on that journey. Now, I'm not saying that you need to come to the meeting, but what you should be saying to them is, what can I do at this meeting where you'll cover me? You tell me what I can and can't do.
Yeah.
Because I just think that better to know that up front.
Yeah, definitely. Interestingly, on the call today, a lot of focus was on COVID impacted. So to go back to our question, they don't know whether that is a COVID impact or not, because the tenant is just not responding, is not communicating. So it may have nothing to do with COVID. And if that's the case, then termination can still happen.
Yeah. It's back to that. Let's all get warm and fuzzy and deal with one another.
Yeah.
But yeah, you're right. I mean, it has to be COVID impacted, and then the 25%. So before to qualify, but I think the 25% is going to be a lot easier than actually proving the first one. And the other point that came out of it, we did ask Fair Trade Industry. Said, well, what information does the tenant need to provide us?
Yeah.
What are the regulations going to require the tenant to give us? And the answer was nothing if they don't want to.
Yeah.
So I don't really know where that's going to land either, because if I'm being asked to give a rent reduction or a deferral based on a COVID impact and 25%, then surely, since I'm going to be adversely affected, and my insurer, if I play the game right, will be adversely affected, surely I can ask for the documents.
Yeah, and the reality is that the tenants also have to be reasonable, and Fair Trading made it fairly clear that if the tenants don't give the information to the agent, they will definitely be asking for that information themselves. So I think although the regulations, it would be preferable for us for the regulations to say a tenant must provide proof, they're going to have to provide proof if they want to get that outcome of a reduced rent.
Yeah, look, I think so. But again, you shouldn't have to go to a dispute resolution environment just because somebody won't give you the documents. But
I know. Stop being such a solicitor. All right. Is there anything else you want to cover off before I let you go?
No, I don't think so. I think we've got plenty on our plate.
We sure do.
I look at my to-do list, and it's not getting any smaller.
No, I know. All right. Well, I will look forward to seeing you again very, very soon.
Yep. No worries.
Okay.
Thanks,
Take
Leanne.
care. Bye.
Bye.